Welcome back in. It's estimated more than 2.2 million ballots were cast here in Alabama in Tuesday's historic election.
And we've heard that some people stood in line for more than 2 hours in some places to be able to vote. And there were a few other issues at some other locations, but look at that video there of the crowd. I know my son and I stood in line for about an hour, but this is in Shelby County, a precinct there stretching blocks through a parking lot down the street. So a lot of people were talking yesterday, Mike, what can be done? Why does this happen in Alabama? Why are we one of few states that does not have early voting?
So joining us now to offer some insight is former Alabama Secretary of State John Merrill. Good morning to you, sir.
Morning, Mike. It's so good to see y'all.
I do want to say, first of all, I did reach out to the current Secretary of State, Wes Allen. His office told me that his schedule was too full. So it would be unfair to you to first talk about the issues that happened in St. Clair County. But that same software company that has taken blame for the printing issues has apparently had issues before. Well, when you look at that from the outside, though, what happened there with the ballot issues? What was your take?
Sure. Well, I will tell you, yesterday morning at 7 o'clock, I was in Phoenix, Arizona, and I got a call from CNN, and they were asking me questions about what was going on in St. Clair County, and so I started to try to figure out exactly what was happening. And I spoke to the probate judge, and let me say he did a great job of understanding what the issue was, addressing the issue, and then making sure that they corrected the issue. One of the things I suggested that he considered doing is something that we had to do in another situation when I was serving as secretary, which was to follow the code, follow the guidelines as established in election administration practices, and extend the polling time for those people that were negatively impacted. And they were able to do that. And they did that. Yeah. So that worked out really, really well.
All right, now there's the long lines, though.
Yeah, so on the question of that, we see these long lines because we can only, unless you vote absentee, as you said, we do have a long early voting for that, right? But not in person, we only have election day.
We do, but let me address this about the lines. First of all, if you have long lines, first of all, no one should ever have to drive more, in our state, no one should ever have to drive more than 20 minutes from their home to their polling site.
Is that right?
The second thing is that no one should ever have to wait in line more than 20 minutes to vote. And if you do, in the 1,980 polling sites we have in our state, you've got poor election administration at the local level, poor planning, poor execution. Maybe you need more tabulators. Maybe you need more poll workers. Maybe you need more understanding about how you move those people in that environment, but you've got to do that. But as far as early voting is concerned, or as you would say, early in-person voting, you know, a lot of people politically, they say, well, it's not election month, it's not election season.
Yeah.
But what we need to do is we need to evaluate and assess where we are each and every time we have an election, and then make a determination about what changes need to occur, what practices need to be embraced or considered. You can't take 2020 and look at it and say, because we had so many people that voted early, we had so many people that voted by mail, that needs to be the standard. That was a blip on the radar. You have to go back and and you have to go back and look at all these other options in the midterm elections and the general and the presidential quadrennium.
And other states have done that, obviously, and it would take an act by the legislature for us to have early in-person voting. But what about the process? Because some people raise concerns, well, it opens the door for fraud. What about that?
Well, you do, but you have increased security measures, you have increased costs, you have increased ballots. One of the things that you and I talked about privately, Mike, was about the different ballot styles that have to be available whenever people go to a central location to vote, because you only think about your ballot when you go to vote at your assigned polling place. But someone that lives across town or across the county will have a different ballot because they may live in a different district. So if you have a central location, you have those increased costs that you have to consider, because people have to be able to be prepared to give you the appropriate ballot when you go vote. So there's a lot of considerations on staffing, on equipment, on security that needs to be addressed as well. But nothing should ever be eliminated until you have done that properly. Maybe it's time again for Alabama to consider a pilot and try to use that in the midterm and see how that works before you embrace it and say, we're going to have a wholesale sellout and start doing early in-person voting.
I'll be honest, when early in-person voting first started, I thought, because not everybody was doing it yet, right? And I thought I loved that election day.
Sure.
And that's why a lot of people feel like voting on election day. But now we're like one of 3 states that doesn't.
Yes,
do
and
it.
Alabama has historically led the nation, especially in the last 16 years, in-person voting on election day. Our people take a lot of pride in that. But again, you need to evaluate, assess, and determine where you need to go in the future based on what your experiences are and what information is available.
Kind of like a new offense coming into college football. Maybe we need to adapt our plan. All right, that's former Secretary of State John Merrill. We do appreciate it. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
sir.
Let me say this quickly. No matter how long we had to wait yesterday, it was a privilege to be able to vote.
That's right, Janet.
Yeah.
All right. We'll be right back.